The Grand Assembly Hall stretched 300 meters in every direction, a cathedral of crystal and light that had stood at the center of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. Ambassador Marcus Webb walked alone across the polished obsidian floor, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence that fell over the gathered representatives. Above him, tiered seating rose in concentric circles, filled with beings from across the known galaxy. Some had scales, others had tentacles, many existed as pure energy contained in specialized suits. All of them watched the human with something between curiosity and contempt. Marcus stopped at the central platform, a circular disc that hovered 2 meters above the floor. He stepped onto it, and the platform rose, lifting him higher until he stood eye level with the council's inner circle. The lights dimmed everywhere except on him. 300 species waited in the darkness beyond the glare, their eyes gleaming like stars. High Chancellor Vor materialized from the shadows. The crystalline elder stood 4 meters tall, his body composed of living diamond that pulsed with inner light. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. "Ambassador Webb of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for the crimes of your species?" Holographic displays flickered to life around Marcus, surrounding him with images of destruction. Broken ships drifted through space, their hulls torn open. Space stations burned with cold fire in the vacuum. Defense satellites spun away into darkness, their systems dead. Every image bore the mark of human weapons, the distinctive scarring of kinetic impactors and nuclear detonations. "In the 90 days since your species achieved faster-than-light capability," Vorn continued, "you have engaged in 47 separate military actions. You have claimed 16 star systems by force. You have destroyed vessels belonging to 18 different organizations. You have ignored every attempt at diplomatic contact from established border species." The chamber erupted. Clicks, whistles, telepathic bursts of outrage filled the air. A representative from the Caltharian Collective, a being of pure electromagnetic energy, flashed with anger so bright that several nearby species shielded their eyes. The 6-headed delegate from Morphade Prime hissed in perfect unison, a sound that made Marcus's teeth ache. Chancellor Vorn raised one crystalline limb, and silence returned. "You have violated every protocol of first contact. You have shown contempt for established territorial boundaries. Your species has demonstrated an aggression that suggests you are either unable or unwilling to coexist peacefully with other civilizations." Marcus remained still, his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed no emotion, though inside his heart hammered against his ribs. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "The Council has deliberated," Vorn said. "We have reviewed the evidence. We have consulted with our military advisors and diplomatic corps. The conclusion is unanimous. Humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. Therefore, we are prepared to authorize a containment protocol. Your home system will be quarantined. No ships will leave. No communications will be permitted beyond your star. You will remain isolated until such time as your species learns to exist peacefully among the civilized worlds." The sentence hung in the air like a death knell. Containment meant the end of humanity's dreams of reaching the stars. It meant Earth would become a prison, surrounded by automated defense platforms that would destroy any vessel that attempted to leave. Some species had been contained for thousands of years, forgotten by the galaxy, left to stagnate in their own solar systems. Marcus finally moved. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. Every weapon sensor in the chamber locked onto him, ready to vaporize him at the first sign of danger. He pulled out a small data chip and held it up between 2 fingers. "With respect, Chancellor," Marcus said, his voice calm and clear, "I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about who we have been fighting and why." Vorn's crystalline structure darkened with what might have been irritation. "The evidence is clear, Ambassador. Your ships, your weapons, your people. What misunderstanding could possibly exist? May I present our own evidence?" A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. The human wanted to present evidence? To defend the indefensible? Several species made sounds that might have been laughter. Vorn gestured with one limb. Proceed. Though I warn you, no amount of justification will change the nature of your actions. Marcus inserted the chip into a reader built into the platform. The holographic displays around him flickered and changed. The same destroyed ships appeared, but now the images showed different angles, different timestamps. The full context emerged. The first image showed a human destroyer, the Pacific Storm, engaging what appeared to be a convoy of cargo vessels. But as the new footage played, it became clear the cargo vessels were attacking a colony transport from a species Marcus didn't recognize. The colony ship's distress beacon flashed desperately. The human destroyer had responded, driving off the attackers and escorting the colony ship to safety. The second image showed human ships destroying a mining station. The new footage revealed that the station had been a prison, where beings from a dozen species were held in forced labor. The human attack had been a rescue operation. Freed prisoners could be seen evacuating to human transports. Image after image, the pattern repeated. Human forces engaging pirates. Human ships defending refugee convoys. Human soldiers liberating slave camps. Every aggressive action was revealed as a response to distress calls, to pleas for help from species that had no protection. The chamber fell silent again. But this time the silence was different, shocked, uncertain. Marcus spoke into the quiet. For 90 days, my species has been operating in what you call the border regions, the territories that fall outside Council jurisdiction. We responded to 47 distress calls. We rescued approximately 2 million beings from various forms of exploitation. We defended 16 colonies that were under attack from raiders. The border regions are beyond our mandate, Vorn said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Yes, Marcus agreed. We noticed. We also noticed that every species we helped had petitioned the Council for aid. Everyone had been refused. Everyone had been told that the Council maintains peace within its territory. But what happens outside is not your concern. A delegate from the rear tiers called out, "The border regions are controlled by the Syndicate. You cannot simply attack them without consequences." Marcus turned toward the voice. The Syndicate, yes, we've learned about them. A criminal empire built on slavery, piracy, and exploitation. An organization that has terrorized the border regions for 800 years. And you made peace with them. We made a truce, Vorn corrected. The alternative was a war that would have cost billions of lives. You made a truce because you were afraid, Marcus said flatly. The chamber erupted again, but he continued over the noise. You drew a line. Inside the line, you enforce law and order. Outside the line, you look away. You ignore the suffering. You ignore the pleas for help. You maintain your peace by sacrificing everyone who lives beyond your borders. You speak of matters you do not understand, human, Vorn said, and now anger crept into his voice. The Syndicate commands fleets in 100 systems. They have weapons that could crack planets. They have infiltrated governments, economies, military structures. We made peace with them because we did not see another choice. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand perfectly, Chancellor. You made peace because the cost of war seemed too high. But humanity has a different philosophy. We believe that some things are worth fighting for. We believe that evil allowed to flourish is evil endorsed. And we believe that those with the power to stop injustice have the responsibility to do so. Bold? Words from a species that has been in space for 90 days, someone called out. Bold words from a species that spent 5,000 years learning how to fight. Marcus countered. Every species in this chamber has asked us to explain our actions. So let me explain. The Syndicate made a mistake 3 weeks ago. They raided a human colony. New Haven, we called it. 40,000 civilians died in that attack. Men, women, children. They died because someone wanted the rare minerals we were mining. His voice remained level, but something in his eyes made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. You want to know why we have not stopped our military operations? That is why. Every species in this chamber made peace with the people who kill innocent civilians for profit. You learn to look away. But humanity will never look away. We will never make peace with those who prey on the helpless. And we will never stop until the Syndicate is nothing but a memory. The chamber fell silent. Chancellor Vorn stared at the human for a long moment. You would declare war on the Syndicate? Your species, barely 3 months in space, against an empire that has existed for centuries? Marcus smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Chancellor, we are not declaring war. War would imply that we see them as equals. What we are doing is called extermination. And we have already begun? Before Vorn could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Emergency signals flashed. A junior aide rushed forward, projecting a holographic display that showed star systems across the border. Regions? In 17 different locations, human fleets were engaging Syndicate forces, coordinated, simultaneous, devastating. Marcus looked up at Chancellor Vorn. So you see, Chancellor, the question before this council is not whether to contain humanity. The question is whether you want us to finish what we have started alone, or whether you want a say in what comes after. The council chamber remained locked down for 3 hours after Marcus's revelation. Military advisors from 24 species crowded around holographic displays, analyzing the battles unfolding across the border regions. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the center of it all, his crystalline body dark with stress. Watching the impossible become reality, Admiral Corvith of the Solarian Defense Fleet, a battle-scarred warrior who had commanded fleets in 6 major wars, manipulated the tactical displays with mounting disbelief. His species had evolved from pack hunters, and his predatory instincts were screaming that something was wrong with what he was seeing. This cannot be accurate, he muttered. These formations, this level of coordination. It takes centuries to develop this kind of tactical cohesion. Marcus stood under guard at the central platform, still calm, still patient. 2 Morphade security officers flanked him, their stunners trained on his back. He watched the displays with professional interest. Occasionally nodding as if confirming something he already knew, General Morrison, humanity's senior military commander, had been brought into the chamber under even heavier guard. She was a compact woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. She stood beside Marcus now, hands behind her back in the same posture, and watched the council's growing panic with grim satisfaction. Explain this, Vorn demanded, gesturing at a tactical display. It showed 3 human battle groups executing a maneuver that military historians would later call the Terran Hammer. One group engaged Syndicate forces head-on while 2 others swept around from opposing vectors, crushing the enemy between them like grain between stones. This tactic. Where did you learn this? Morrison answered without hesitation. We call it a double envelopment, Chancellor. Hannibal used it at Cannae in 216 BCE, that is approximately 2,241 years ago by Earth's calendar. We have been refining the concept ever since. A Keltharian observer, its energy form flickering with agitation, transmitted directly into the minds of everyone present. Impossible. No species maintains military doctrine across millennia. Warfare evolves. Technology changes. Old tactics become obsolete. Not the fundamental principles, Morrison replied. Technology changes how we fight. But the core concepts of warfare remain constant. Sun Tzu wrote them down 2,500 years ago. Concentrate force at the decisive point. Attack enemy weaknesses. Defend your strengths. Know your enemy. Know yourself. We have been studying war since before we had writing. Another display lit up, showing human vessels deploying what appeared to be massive chunks of rock toward a Syndicate station. The rocks accelerated to tremendous speeds, and when they impacted, the station simply ceased. The assembled military observers flinched. What weapon is that? Someone demanded. Asteroid, Marcus said simply. Iron-nickel composition, approximately 2,000 tons, accelerated to 0.02 light speed. Kinetic energy of approximately 10,000 nuclear weapons. We do not need exotic particle beams or antimatter torpedoes, Chancellor. Mass and velocity work just fine. Admiral Corvith studied the humans with new respect and deeper fear. You mine asteroids and use them as weapons. We mine asteroids and use them as ammunition, Morrison corrected. There is a difference. Weapons must be manufactured. Ammunition just needs to be aimed. The Morphade military analyst, her 6 heads working in rapid coordination, brought up specifications on human vessels. These ships, they do not use standard fusion cores. Our scans detect something else, something more dangerous. Marcus nodded to Morrison, who explained. We use what we call nuclear pulse propulsion for some vessels. Essentially, we detonate small nuclear devices behind thick pusher plates. The explosions propel the ship. For larger vessels, we use antimatter-catalyzed fusion. Small amounts of antimatter trigger larger fusion reactions. It is efficient and powerful. You weaponized your propulsion systems, Vorn stated. No, Chancellor. We built propulsion systems that could be weaponized if necessary. There is a difference. Every human ship is designed with dual purposes. Colony vessels carry mining equipment that can clear landing zones or defend against attacks. Science ships carry sensor arrays that can detect enemy movements. Transport ships have cargo bays that can be reconfigured for troop deployment. We learned long ago that in a hostile universe, everything must serve multiple functions. Another alarm sounded. Intelligence reports flooded in from across the border regions. Human forces were not just fighting battles. They were winning them, decisively, brutally. Syndicate bases that had stood for centuries were falling in hours. A Caltharian intelligence officer projected new findings. According to our analysis, Earth did not send exploration vessels into space. They sent an invasion fleet. We count approximately 300 warships, 200 support vessels, and 150 troop transports. This is not exploration. This is conquest. Actually, Marcus said quietly, those numbers are wrong. You have detected 650 vessels. We have deployed 3,200. The chamber went silent. Every being present turned to stare at the human. Vorn's crystalline structure pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. 3,000 ships. In 90 days of spaceflight. No, Morrison corrected. 3,000 ships in 18 months of construction. We have been building our fleet since before we made first contact with your automated beacon. When we detected the Council's communications and learned we were not alone in the galaxy, we began preparing. The Morphade analyst made rapid calculations, her multiple brains working in parallel. The resource expenditure? The industrial capacity required. To build such a fleet. It would require, no, it would demand. She stopped, unable to finish. Marcus finished for her. Earth has 8 billion people. We converted 40% of our industrial capacity to the space program. We built 17 orbital shipyards. We established mining operations on 12 asteroids and 4 moons. We recruited and trained 2 million personnel for space operations. And we have been planning this for 20 years. Since we first confirmed the existence of other intelligent species through radio astronomy. Admiral Corvith stepped forward. You prepared for war before you even achieved spaceflight. We prepared for survival, Morrison said sharply. We did not know what we would find out here. We hoped for peaceful neighbors. We prepared for hostile ones. When we learned about the Council, we were relieved. When we learned about the Syndicate and the border regions, we were horrified. When we established our first colonies and saw the suffering that you all ignore, we made a decision. What decision? Vorn asked, though part of him did not want to know the answer. That humanity would not be another species that looks away. That we would not buy our peace with the suffering of others. That we would not join a civilization that draws lines and abandons those on the wrong side. New displays activated showing the aftermath of human attacks. Freed slaves being evacuated. Liberated colonies receiving aid. Human medical teams treating the injured. Human engineers rebuilding destroyed infrastructure. For every warship in their fleet, humans had deployed 3 support vessels. You are not just attacking the syndicate, a council member observed. You are replacing them? Marcus nodded. Someone will fill the vacuum when the syndicate falls. We intend to make sure that someone is dedicated to protecting the innocent rather than exploiting them. Chancellor Vorn studied the tactical displays for a long moment. The battles continued to rage. Human forces advanced on multiple fronts. The syndicate, caught completely off guard, reeled from the coordinated assault. The syndicate will not accept this. They will commit their full strength. They have fleets we have not seen in centuries, held in reserve. When they deploy those forces, your 3,000 ships will not be enough. Morrison smiled, and it was a predator's expression. Chancellor, those 3,000 ships are our first wave. Earth's shipyards are currently constructing another 2,000 vessels. They will be ready for deployment in 6 months. And we have plans for 10,000 more. This is madness, someone whispered. No, Marcus said. This is commitment. Humanity learned something from our history, Chancellor. When you are the new species in a dangerous galaxy, you have 2 choices. You can come in weak and hope others will protect you. Or you can come in strong enough that nobody wants to test you. We chose strength. An urgent message arrived, marked Priority 1. Chancellor Vorn read it, and his crystalline body flashed with surprise. The Syndicate High Command is requesting immediate contact. They want to negotiate. With whom? Morrison asked. With you. They want to arrange peace talks. With humanity. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Syndicate, the criminal empire that had terrorized the border regions for 8 centuries, wanted to negotiate. After 90 days of human presence in space. After 2 weeks of combat, Marcus and Morrison exchanged glances. Morrison nodded once, and Marcus turned back to Chancellor Vorn. Tell them we will meet. But make the terms clear. This is not a negotiation. This is us explaining what will happen next. They can either surrender on our terms, or we will continue until there is nothing left to surrender. Vorn stared at the human. You speak of destroying an empire that has existed for 800 years. You have been in space for 90 days? Do you not understand the scale of what you are suggesting? Marcus met his gaze steadily. Chancellor, 40,000 of our people died at New Haven, our children, our families. Do you understand what that means to humanity? We are a species that remembers. We hold memorials for battles fought thousands of years ago. We teach our children about injustices from centuries past. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we will never allow what happened at New Haven to happen again. Not to humans. Not to anyone. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Syndicate wants to negotiate because they are beginning to understand what they are facing. Not just our weapons or our ships. They are facing a species that will sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. A species that would rather burn than bend. A species that has spent 5,000 years learning that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is what you build after you destroy those who prey on the helpless. Chancellor Vorn was silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. The Council will serve as neutral ground for these negotiations. But I warn you, Ambassador. If you continue down this path, if you truly intend to dismantle the Syndicate, you will change the galaxy forever. There will be consequences you cannot foresee. Marcus nodded. We know, Chancellor. But we have already decided that some things are worth the consequences. And stopping the Syndicate is one of them. The Council chamber had been reconfigured for negotiations. The tiered seating remained, filled with representatives who had come to witness what many believed would be a historic mistake. At ground level, 2 tables faced each other across 10 meters of polished floor. On one side sat the Syndicate delegation, 20 beings representing the criminal empire's ruling coalition. On the other side, 3 humans, Brelic, the Syndicate's supreme commander, was massive even by the standards of his species. He stood 3 meters tall, covered in armored plates that had evolved for combat on a high-gravity world. His 4 eyes swept over the human delegation with unconcealed amusement. Behind him, his advisors and commanders watched with similar expressions. They had agreed to these talks to buy time, to assess this new threat, and perhaps to find weakness they could exploit. Marcus Webb sat in the center of the human delegation, flanked by General Morrison and Fleet Admiral James Okafor. The Admiral was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes that had seen combat in 3 different stellar systems. He rested his hands on the table, relaxed. Patient. High Chancellor Vorn stood between the 2 tables, his crystalline form serving as neutral arbiter. These negotiations will determine the future of the border regions, he announced. The Syndicate has agreed to discuss terms. Humanity has agreed to present their position. Let us begin. Brellick leaned forward, his massive frame making the reinforced chair creak. 3 humans, he rumbled, his voice deep enough to vibrate through the floor. We brought 20. Is this how seriously Earth takes these negotiations? Morrison did not smile. We brought 3 because we do not need more. This is not a negotiation. This is us delivering terms. The chamber went absolutely silent. Syndicate representatives shifted uncomfortably. Council observers leaned forward. No species spoke to the Syndicate this way. No species delivered terms to them. Brellick's amusement faded. You are new to the galaxy, human. Perhaps you do not understand how things work. The Syndicate has existed for 800 years. We control trade routes through 50 systems. We command fleets that your species cannot match. You have had some early success, but that changes nothing. We came here to offer you peace. To give you a chance to walk away before this becomes costly for everyone. Admiral Okafor activated a holographic display without asking permission. The projection filled the space between the tables, showing a 3-dimensional map of Syndicate territory. Red dots marked their bases, supply routes, command centers, and fleet positions. There were hundreds of them, spread across 40 star systems. For the past 90 days, Okafor said calmly, while you believed we were naive explorers bumbling through your territory, we were conducting reconnaissance. These are your installations. Every base, every supply depot, every command center, every fleet staging area. We have mapped your entire operation. He touched a control and specific systems lit up in yellow. This is your primary slave processing facility in the Vega sector. 6 million sentient beings are held there against their will. This is your weapons manufacturing complex in the Arcturus Rim. This is your financial hub where you launder profits from piracy and extortion. This is your command nexus where you coordinate operations across all Syndicate territories. More systems lit up. Dozens of them. Brellick's 4 eyes widened slightly. His advisors whispered urgently among themselves. We know where you operate, Okafor continued. We know your force deployments. We know your supply chains. We know which of your allies are committed and which are simply afraid. We have spent 3 months learning everything about you while you dismissed us as irrelevant. Morrison stood and walked to the display. We have teams in position at each of these facilities. Not surveillance teams. Strike teams. Marines in powered armor. Special operations units with nuclear charges. Combat engineers with enough explosives to level installations. We are not preparing for war, Commander Brellick. We are ready to execute it. Brellick rose to his full height, attempting to use his size to intimidate. You are bluffing. Even if you found these locations, you do not have the forces to strike them all simultaneously. We have fleets defending each position. We have automated defense systems. We have countermeasures you cannot imagine. Marcus finally spoke. Chancellor Vorn, with your permission, I would like to address a common misconception about humanity. Vorn gestured assent. Clearly fascinated despite his concerns, Marcus stood and walked around the table until he stood directly in front of Brellick. The size difference was comical. The Syndicate commander towered over the human. But Marcus showed no fear. For 5,000 years, my species has been perfecting the art of war. We have fought on land, sea, air, and now space. We have studied every conflict in our history. We have learned from every defeat. And we have developed certain principles that we follow absolutely. He held up one finger. First, always know your enemy better than they know you. A second finger. Second, never fight fair. Use every advantage. Exploit every weakness. A third finger. Third, when you commit to violence, commit completely. No half measures. No hesitation, a fourth finger. Fourth, make the first strike so devastating that the enemy never recovers. He lowered his hand. Commander Brellick, 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked our colony at New Haven. 40,000 humans died. When we received word of the attack, our leadership held a meeting. It lasted 6 hours. At the end of that meeting, we made a decision. The syndicate would cease to exist. Not would be defeated. Not would be contained. Would cease to exist. Brellick laughed, though it sounded forced. Bold words. But words are not fleets. Words are not weapons. Admiral Okafor touched another control. The holographic display changed to show fleet positions. Human fleet positions. The syndicate representatives fell silent as they saw the scale of Earth's deployment. Battle groups surrounded every major syndicate installation. Support fleets moved through supposedly secret supply routes. Strike forces held position near every command center. We have been in position for 5 days, Okafor explained. Waiting for these talks? Giving you a chance to surrender peacefully. Morrison returned to her seat. Here are our terms. You have 72 hours to begin releasing all slaves and prisoners. You will open your facilities to council inspection teams. You will stand down your military forces and submit them to neutral custody. You will surrender your leadership for trial under galactic law. You will provide full documentation of your operations, including client lists and financial records. And if we refuse? Brellick asked, though his confidence had clearly shaken. Then in 72 hours, Okafor said quietly, we demonstrate why humanity spent 5,000 years learning how to destroy things. The syndicate delegation erupted in protest. Advisors shouted. Commanders made threats. But Brellick held up one massive hand for silence. His 4 eyes studied the 3 humans carefully. You are serious. You truly believe you can destroy us. We do not believe, Marcus corrected. We know, because we have already planned it down to the last detail. Every target. Every strike. Every contingency. We have war-gamed hundreds of scenarios. We have prepared for every possible response. And in every simulation, the syndicate ceases to exist within 6 months. He leaned forward. But it does not have to be war, Commander. You can choose peace. You can choose to end this peacefully. Release the slaves. Submit to justice. Help us dismantle the system of exploitation you be? Yult. In return, individuals who cooperate will receive leniency. Those who resist will be treated as enemy combatants. Brellick stared at the human for a long moment. Then he threw back his head and laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the chamber. You are children playing at war. You do not understand what you are proposing. The syndicate has defeated a dozen species who thought they could stop us. We have crushed rebellions. We have survived council sanctions. We have outlasted empires. You think 3 months in space makes you qualified to challenge us? He turned to his delegation. We are leaving. These talks are over. Humanity can keep the few systems they have taken. We will even ignore the attacks as a learning experience. But if they continue their aggression, we will respond with the full might of 8 centuries of accumulated power. And these naive children will learn what real war means. The syndicate delegation stood and moved toward the exit. But Marcus's voice stopped them. Commander Brellick. Before you leave, I should mention one more thing. Brellick turned back, irritation clear on his face. Our countdown has already started, Marcus said softly. 72 hours, starting from when I made the offer. That was 20 minutes ago. So you actually have 71 hours and 40 minutes. I wanted to be clear about that. For the first time, true anger flashed in Brellick's eyes. You dare threaten me? In the council chambers, with the Chancellor himself as witness? Not a threat, Morrison said. A promise, 71 hours and 39 minutes now. When that time expires, if those slaves are not being released, if your forces have not stood down, we will demonstrate why humanity is the apex predator on our world. And by the time we are finished, the galaxy will understand that some things are worth fighting for. And stopping those who prey on the helpless is one of them. Relic stormed from the chamber, his delegation following. The massive doors slammed shut behind them with a sound like thunderdot in the silence that followed. Chancellor Vorn descended from his observation platform. Do you understand what you have just done? You have given the Syndicate 72 hours to prepare their defenses. To call in reinforcements? To fortify positions? Admiral Okafor nodded. Yes, Chancellor. We have given them 72 hours to be afraid. To doubt, to fracture, some will try to fortify, some will try to flee, some will start looking for deals. By the time our deadline expires, they will be disorganized, paranoid, and reactive. That is when you strike. Morrison added, Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. We do not expect the Syndicate to surrender. But we do expect this deadline to tear them apart from the inside. And when we attack, they will be their own worst enemy. Marcus looked up at Chancellor Vorn. You asked if we understand what we have done? Yes, we have started a war. But more than that, we have announced to the entire galaxy that humanity will not tolerate slavery, piracy, or exploitation. Every species watching these talks now knows where we stand. And after we demonstrate what happens to those who prey on the helpless, no one will doubt our commitment. Vorn was silent for a long moment. The 72 hours. What will we do? We wait, Marcus said simply. And we prepare to keep our promise. 72 hours and 23 minutes after the ultimatum, human forces struck across 43 star systems simultaneously. The Galactic Council watched in real time from their observation platforms, unable to look away from what was unfolding before them. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the central command display, his crystalline body pulsing with stress around him. Military advisors from dozens of species monitored the battles with expressions ranging from professional interest to absolute horror. The scale of the human offensive defied everything they understood about warfare. They are attacking everywhere at once, Admiral Corvith whispered, his predatory instincts screaming warnings his conscious mind struggled to process. Simultaneous strikes across hundreds of light years. The coordination required, the timing, this is impossible. General Morrison stood beside Marcus at the human observation station, watching the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Not impossible, Admiral, just difficult. We have been training for this specific operation for 6 months. Every commander knows their targets. Every ship knows its role. Every Marine knows their objective. The first targets to fall were the Syndicate's communication hubs. Human electronic warfare teams operating from stealth ships positioned weeks earlier launched coordinated cyber attacks that crippled enemy communications. Syndicate commanders suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to coordinate with their fleets or call for reinforcements. Then came the kinetic strikes. Asteroids, accelerated to terrible velocities, slammed into hardened facilities. The impacts released energy equivalent to hundreds of nuclear weapons. Defensive shields, designed to stop energy weapons or missiles, did nothing against solid rock moving at relativistic speeds. Bases that had stood for centuries vanished in flashes of light brighter than suns. They are using asteroids as weapons, a Morphade analyst said, all 6 of her heads tracking different aspects of the battle. They are not even using manufactured ammunition. They are throwing rocks, very fast rocks, Morrison corrected, and very accurately thrown. The Council watched as human battle groups engaged Syndicate fleets using tactics that should not have worked. Outnumbered 3-1 in several systems, human ships used maneuvers that military historians would later recognize as ancient Earth strategies adapted for space combat, the Battle of Marathon, the tactics of Agincourt, the ambush methods of countless guerrilla wars. Thousands of years of military doctrine compressed into each engagement. But what truly horrified the observers was what happened when human forces boarded enemy vessels. Marines in powered armor moved through Syndicate ships like death itself, clearing corridors with a brutal efficiency that suggested intimate knowledge of close-quarters combat. They used weapons that seemed primitive, projectile arms and explosive charges, but in the confined spaces of ship interiors, these crude tools proved devastatingly effective. "They are fighting inside the ships," Vorn said, watching a feed from a Syndicate cruiser being taken by human boarding teams. "They are engaging in hand-to-hand combat in zero gravity. We call it boarding action," Marcus explained. "Pirates on Earth's oceans did it for centuries. We simply adapted the concept for space. Why destroy a vessel when you can capture it intact? Why waste resources when you can claim them?" Admiral Okafor brought up a tactical overlay. "Our Marines train in full gravity, reduced gravity, and zero gravity. They practice boarding actions against simulated enemy vessels. They learn to fight in vacuum, in pressurized corridors, in command centers, in engineering spaces. Every human Marine has completed over 2,000 hours of close-quarters combat training before deployment." 2,000 hours, Admiral Corvith repeated. "That is more than our special forces receive." "That is our minimum standard," Morrison replied. "Elite units receive 5 times that much. Because we learn from our history that wars are not won by fleets in space. Wars are won by soldiers who can secure territory, hold positions, and break enemy resistance at the most personal level." The Battle of Vega Sector became the focal point of Council observation. The Syndicate's primary slave processing facility was protected by orbital defense platforms, automated weapon systems, and a fleet of 30 warships. Human forces attacked with only 12 ships, but those 12 ships carried 2,000 Marines and a commitment that shocked everyone watching. The human fleet did not engage the defending vessels in traditional combat. Instead, they deployed what Morrison called nuclear mines, small fusion devices scattered throughout the battlefield. When Syndicate ships maneuvered to attack, they triggered the mines. 3 enemy vessels simply ceased to exist in nuclear fire. The others scattered, their formation broken, their coordination shattered. While the enemy fleet regrouped, human ships deployed drop pods directly toward the facility. The Council watched as 2,000 armored Marines fell through defensive fire toward the station. Many pods were destroyed, but hundreds reached their target. The Marines breached the hull in multiple locations and began fighting their way to the facility's control centers. "They are accepting casualties," a Caltharian observer noted, its energy form flickering with distress. "They are sacrificing their people to achieve objectives." "They are committing to victory," Admiral Corvith corrected, his warrior instincts understanding even as his civilized sensibilities recoiled. "They have decided that freeing those slaves is worth the cost. That is not recklessness, that is conviction." Inside the facility, the Marines moved with terrifying purpose. They neutralized guards, secured prisoners, and disabled automated defenses. Within 3 hours, the facility was under human control. Evacuation shuttles began lifting 6 million freed slaves to waiting transport ships, but the fighting did not stop there. Human forces pursued fleeing Syndicate vessels. They hunted down supply convoys. They attacked hidden bases that the enemy thought were secret. They dismantled the infrastructure of exploitation piece by piece. "They are not fighting to win territory," a Council military advisor observed. "They are fighting destroy the Syndicate's capacity to function." "Systematic dismantlement," Marcus confirmed. "We are not at war with the Syndicate in the traditional sense. We are eliminating them as a functional entity. Every base we take removes their ability to operate in that region. Every ship we capture or destroy reduces their fleet. Every supply route we cut weakens their logistical capacity. We are not trying to defeat them. We are erasing them." 2 weeks into the offensive, the Syndicate began to fracture. Member species defected, seeking deals with humanity or the Council. Commanders surrendered rather than face human forces. Bases sent messages of capitulation before human ships even arrived. The criminal empire that had terrorized the border, Regions for 8 centuries was collapsing. Chancellor Vorn received a priority transmission and projected it for all to see. It was from Brelic, the Syndicate's supreme commander. The massive being that had been so confident during negotiations now looked diminished. His armor scarred, his eyes exhausted. "Chancellor," Brelic said, his voice carrying none of its former authority, "the Syndicate High Command requests mediation. We wish to surrender. We accept the human terms. All of them, please, make them stop." The chamber fell silent. The impossible had happened. The Syndicate, the terror of the border regions, was begging for mercy. Marcus studied the transmission for a moment, then shook his head. "No, no," Vorn repeated, his crystalline structure flashing with surprise. "He had 72 hours to surrender," Morrison explained. "That window has closed. Now we finish what we started." "You would refuse their surrender?" a council member asked. "That violates every law of war, every protocol of civilized conflict." General Morrison turned to face the assembly. With respect, there was nothing civilized about what the Syndicate did. They enslaved millions. They murdered countless beings. They built an empire on suffering. And when we gave them a chance to end it peacefully, they laughed at us. They walked away. They chose to fight. She gestured at the displays showing liberated slaves, freed colonies, rescued prisoners. Every hour we spend negotiating is another hour that someone suffers under Syndicate control. Every day we delay is another day that their victims wait for justice. We made a promise to stop them, not to negotiate with them, not to accommodate them, to stop them. And that is what we will do. Admiral Okafor added, "The Syndicate is not offering genuine surrender. They are trying to buy time to regroup, to hide assets, to preserve their leadership for a future resurgence. We have studied their tactics. We know their patterns. This is not submission. This is a survival strategy." Marcus addressed Chancellor Vorn directly. "You asked us earlier why we are not stopping. Let me answer you now in front of everyone. How many species in this chamber have lost people to the Syndicate? How many have family members who were taken, who were enslaved, who disappeared into the border regions never to return?" He looked around at the assembled representatives. Many shifted uncomfortably. Some would not meet his eyes. "We are stopping the Syndicate not just for humanity, but for all of you. For every species that made peace because fighting seemed too costly. For every civilization that looked away because the problem seemed too difficult. We are doing what you should have done centuries ago. And we will see it through to completion, no matter the cost?" Vorn asked. "No matter the cost," Marcus confirmed. "Because that is what humans do. When we commit to something, when we decide that something must be done, we do it. We do not quit. We do not compromise. We do not accept half measures. We finish what we start." The offensive continued. Human forces showed no sign of slowing. The Syndicate's territories shrank day by day. Their fleets scattered or surrendered. Their bases fell or were abandoned. The criminal empire that had seemed eternal was dissolving like mist before the human onslaught. Admiral Corvith approached Marcus and Morrison, his expression thoughtful. "I have fought in 6 major wars. I have commanded fleets against enemies that seemed invincible. But I have never seen anything like this. Your species is not just winning battles. You are destroying an empire through pure determination, through willingness to pay any price for victory." Morrison met his gaze. "Admiral, humanity learned a hard lesson from our history. Evil is not defeated by good intentions. It is not stopped by strongly worded protests. It is not contained by drawing lines and hoping it respects them. Evil is stopped by good people willing to do violence in defense of the innocent. We are those people. And we will not stop until the Syndicate is nothing but a memory." Corvith nodded slowly. "I understand. And I am grateful. But I am also terrified. Because I now understand what this galaxy has awakened. A species that does not accept injustice. That does not fear cost. That will sacrifice everything for principles. And I wonder what happens when you turn that determination toward other problems. Marcus smiled slightly. Then I suggest, Admiral, that the galaxy make sure there are no other problems worth our attention. Because you are right. We do not accept injustice. And we have just proven that we have the will and the capability to stop it, regardless of who stands in our way. 6 months after the first human military action, the Grand Council chamber convened for what many believed would be the most important session in galactic history. The Syndicate was gone, completely dismantled. Their territories were under transitional government supervised by Joint Human Council administration. Millions of freed slaves had been returned to their homeworlds or given the choice to settle in protected colonies. The border regions, chaotic and lawless for 800 years, were experiencing the first real peace in living memory, but the assembled representatives were not celebrating. They were afraid. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the central platform, his crystalline form dimmer than usual, showing his exhaustion from months of crisis management. The Council acknowledges humanity's achievements, he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. You have accomplished in 6 months what we believed impossible. The Syndicate is no more. The border regions are secure. Millions of beings owe you their freedom. He paused, and his next words carried the weight of the entire galaxy's concern. But you have also demonstrated military capabilities that far exceed what any species your age should possess. Intelligence reports indicate you have not stopped building ships. You continue to expand your forces. You are establishing military installations throughout the border regions. And you are training former victim species in human combat doctrines. The Morphade analyst presented new findings, her 6 heads all focused on different data streams. Earth's industrial capacity continues to expand. They now have 30 orbital shipyards, double what they possessed 6 months ago. Current production estimates suggest they will have 5,000 vessels within the year. They are not demobilizing. They are expanding. A murmur ran through the chamber. 5,000 warships. For a species that had been in space for less than a year, Marcus Webb stood at the center platform, but he was not alone this time. Beside him stood representatives from 27 liberated species, beings who had been slaves 6 months ago, colonies that had been terrorized by pirates, worlds that the Council had abandoned to their fate. One of them, a small being with translucent skin named Kirill, stepped forward. High Chancellor, with your permission, I would like to speak. Vorn gestured assent, curious despite his concerns. Kirill's voice was soft but steady. I am from the world you call Delta Pavonis 3. 20 years ago, my people petitioned the Council for protection. The Syndicate was raiding our settlements, taking our people as slaves. We showed you evidence. We showed you testimonies. We begged for help. She paused, emotion clear in her voice. You told us that our world was outside Council jurisdiction, that you sympathized but could not intervene, that we should try to negotiate with the Syndicate. My sister was taken 3 weeks after that decision. I never saw her again. The chamber was silent. Many representatives would not meet Kirill's eyes. 6 months ago, human ships arrived in our system. They came in response to our distress beacon, the same beacon we had been broadcasting for 20 years. They drove off the Syndicate raiders. They helped us rebuild. And 3 weeks ago, they found my sister. She had been held in a mining facility for 19 years. Human Marines freed her. Kirill turned to face Marcus. So, when I hear concerns about human military expansion, when I hear worries about their capabilities, I remember one thing. They came when you would not. They fought when you were afraid. They saved my sister when you said there was nothing you could do. Another representative stepped forward, a tall being covered in feathers named Torvak. My colony sent 23 petitions to the Council over 15 years. Each one was acknowledged. Each one was filed. Each one resulted in no action. When humans arrived, they did not file reports. They did not debate. They acted. And now my people live without fear for the first time in a generation. One by one, the representatives of liberated worlds spoke. Each had a sim. Iller story. Pleas for help ignored. Petitions filed and forgotten. Suffering that the Council chose not to address. and each had been saved by human intervention. When they finished, Marcus finally spoke. "High Chancellor, we understand your concerns. You have watched us dismantle an empire that terrified you for centuries. You have seen our military grow when, by all logic, we should still be exploring our own solar system. You are wondering what our true intentions are. You are wondering if you are next." He let the words hang in the air for a moment. "Let me be completely clear about humanity's position. We did not come to the stars to conquer. We came to explore, to learn, to trade, and to find our place among the civilized species of the galaxy. But we also came with certain non-negotiable principles." General Morrison stepped forward. "We do not accept that injustice in some places is tolerable as long as we are comfortable. We do not agree that drawing lines and looking away is acceptable policy. We do not believe that maintaining peace by abandoning the helpless is true peace at all." Admiral Okafor activated a holographic display. "These 27 species and 19 others have formally petitioned to join an expanded Galactic Council. They want the protection that they were denied for decades. They want justice, and they have asked humanity to provide the military force necessary to guarantee their safety." The implications crashed through the chamber like a wave. An expanded council with humanity as its primary military power. The balance of galactic politics shifting overnight. "This is coercion," someone called out. "You are using your military strength to force changes to the council structure." "No," Marcus replied calmly. "These species are exercising their sovereign right to seek alliances. They could petition to join the existing council, but many of them tried that before and were refused. So they are proposing something new. A council that does not draw arbitrary lines. A council that protects all members, not just those in convenient locations. A council that enforces law throughout its jurisdiction, not just in comfortable territories." He paused, then continued. "And if the existing council refuses this proposal, then these species have asked us to form a separate alliance. One where military power is used to protect the weak, not to maintain comfortable neutrality. We would prefer to work within the existing council structure. But we will not abandon these people to suffer while politicians debate." Chancellor Vorn studied the human carefully. "You are giving us an ultimatum. Accept your terms or face a divided galaxy." "We are offering a choice," Morrison corrected. "Continue the old system, where some regions are protected and others are abandoned, and watch half the galaxy form a competing power structure. Or adapt, expand your mandate. Accept these new members, and work with humanity to build something better." "And if we refuse?" Vorn asked, though he already knew the answer. "That in 5 years, maybe 10, you will face a second major power in the galaxy," Marcus said. "One built on the principle that all sapient beings deserve protection. One with military capabilities that rival or exceed your own. One that will act where you will not. And the galaxy will have to decide which system they prefer." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued that accepting humanity's proposal would fundamentally change galactic civilization. Others pointed out that humanity had already changed everything simply by existing. Some warned of the dangers of giving humans too much power. Others noted that humans already had that power. The question was whether they used it alone or within council oversight. "Admiral." Corvith rose and requested permission to speak. Vorn, looking exhausted, granted it. "I have spent months studying human military operations," Corvith said. "I have analyzed their tactics, their strategies, their doctrine, and I have reached a conclusion that I believe this council needs to hear." He gestured at the displays showing human deployments. "Humanity terrifies me. Not because of their weapons, though those are formidable. Not because of their tactics, though those are brilliant. Humanity terrifies me because they mean what they say. When they make a commitment, they honor it regardless of cost. When they see injustice, they act regardless of convenience. That kind of dedication is dangerous in ways that weapons never are." He paused, his predatory eyes sweeping across the assembly. "But perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs. We have become comfortable, complacent, We accepted the Syndicate because fighting them was difficult. We accepted the suffering of the border regions because addressing it was costly. We built a civilization on the principle that some injustice is acceptable if it maintains our peace. His voice hardened. Humanity has reminded us that such a civilization is built on sand. That true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. They have shown us what is possible when a species commits fully to protecting the innocent. And they have demonstrated that the galaxy can be better than it has been. He turned to face High Chancellor Vorn. I vote to accept the proposal. Expand the Council. Welcome the new members. And work with humanity to build something worth being part of. The vote took 3 days. Heated debates filled the chamber. Old alliances fractured and new ones formed. Some species threatened to leave if the measure passed. Others promised to leave if it failed. In the end, the measure succeeded by the narrowest margin in Council history. The Galactic Council would expand its mandate. It would accept the petitioning species as full members, and humanity would serve as the primary military force for enforcing galactic law throughout the new territories. Marcus and Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Council Joint Command Station, watching ships from a dozen species conduct coordinated patrols. Human vessels flew alongside Council cruisers. Former enemies trained together. The galaxy was changing, adapting to new realities. Do you think it will work? Morrison asked. Marcus watched a human destroyer escort a convoy of colony ships toward a newly protected world. I think we have given it the best chance possible. We have proven that evil can be stopped when people commit to stopping it. We have shown that the galaxy can be better. Now we have to make sure it stays better. And if the Council forgets? If they start drawing lines again? Then we remind them why those lines do not work. We keep our fleet strong. We maintain our vigilance. And we never forget what happens when good people do nothing. Morrison nodded. The galaxy will fear us for a generation. Let them, Marcus replied. Fear is not respect, but it is a start. Eventually they will understand. We did not come to conquer the galaxy. We came to make sure everyone in it could live without fear, even those who fear us. Below them, on a liberated world that had known only suffering for decades, children of 3 species played together in a market square. Human soldiers stood guard nearby, their weapons ready but their posture relaxed. Trade flourished. Communities rebuilt. Hope returned. In a classroom on that same world, Carol taught younglings about recent history, about how her people had suffered, about how help finally came, and about the species from a small blue world that had looked at the galaxy's injustice and decided that some things were worth fighting for. She showed them images of Earth, a beautiful world that had known war but found peace, a species that had climbed from caves to the stars through determination and innovation, a civilization that had learned the hard way that freedom must be defended, that justice must be fought for, and that evil only triumphs when good people look away. Will the humans always protect us? One child asked. Kirill smiled. I believe they will try. But more importantly, they are teaching us to protect ourselves. They are showing us that we do not have to accept injustice, that we can stand up, that we can fight back, and that together we can build something better than what came before. High above, human warships continued their patrols. Earth's shipyards continued their construction. Training facilities taught the next generation of defenders. The galaxy had awakened humanity expecting to find explorers or traders or perhaps rivals. Instead, they had unleashed something far more dangerous and far more hopeful. A species that looked at suffering and could not turn away. A civilization that would sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. Guardians who would hold the line against darkness no matter the cost. The galaxy would never be the same. And for millions of beings who had known only fear and suffering, that was exactly what they needed. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.